And joining us today, we have Newsmax contributor Kevin Broderick and attorney Emily Compagno. Thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Emily, first question to you, ladies first. Does the thought of a Clinton-Trump matchup, does it scare you? Can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Oh, okay, good. I didn't know if you were just that frightened that you were at a loss of words, but does a Trump-Clinton matchup frighten you is the question.
It doesn't frighten me if Trump comes out showing his best self. What we saw today from Hillary in her speech, I believe, indicates that kind of dissolution to rhetoric of it's not strong, it's wrong, and these kind of basic things that sure you can cheer for. But it would be amazing if Trump came out and he really dedicated himself to policy. If that was what we saw coming forward, if he came out and proved to the world that he can be this serious presidential candidate, then it would be a strong matchup.
All right, Kevin, are you holding your breath on that? You expecting to hear some policy, to hear Trump get down in the weeds on policy?
I think he's going to get down in the weeds on policy. I think the interesting thing about the matchup is Trump really turns the electoral map on its head. You're going to have states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin that are now going to be in play. Even states like Massachusetts with a heavy population of white working class. Those are like the Reagan Democrats, and Trump is winning them in droves. People don't really trust Hillary Clinton, and Donald Trump comes out with a fresh brand of honesty with some populist messaging that really resonates with people. It's going to be the most entertaining election of our lifetimes, without a doubt, because of the media environment we're in with Donald Trump and Twitter. But he's going to attack them and attack the Clintons very hard, and he neutralizes Bill Clinton pretty well as well.
Emily, what do you think about Hillary Clinton turning to, she still does have some contests with Bernie Sanders, and if you read the internet, Bernie Sanders fans are still hoping for a miracle that they might still
They're passionate.
Win this. But do you think she's making a mistake by now pivoting towards Donald Trump and focusing so much of her energy on defeating the GOP frontrunner instead of trying to win her own race?
I think it smacks of her typical narcissism, frankly, but I'm not surprised. And I think depending on I think if it damages her campaign, it will be so only slightly. And I think Bernie, however, might have this chance to come up from behind. And I do want to say that I think her whole pitch, however, that she is championing the rights of those who haven't been able to, and she's right there with this steel worker, and she's right there with this woman who works to support 4 mouths on a single income. This is where Trump has the opportunity to call her out, because he has plenty of failures that she can illustrate, but at least he's trying. He has put himself out there more. And yes, I understand he is not quite a steel worker himself, but it can really resonate with this population in the states that we discussed earlier if he highlights that. And if he's like, she's been protected by the Secret Service for 30 years. Like, there could be no wider chasm between her and the working person, even more than Trump and the working person.
Kevin, we were talking about issues, and to Emily's point, though, and I want to go back to what you were saying earlier about pivoting. Now we're hearing from Donald Trump, he's talking about unifying. We need to unify. We need to unify. We need to unify the party. When do you think he's actually really going to work towards doing that?
I think that's going to have to happen over the next month. It looks like the primary electoral map is favoring him. There's a lot of winner-take-all states. More of them are winner-take-all from this point on. So that's going to favor Trump, particularly with the 3-person race. It looks like he could wrap this up in 5 or 6 weeks, at which point he's going to have to reach out to those establishment Republicans and say, hey, get on the same page or we're going to have to deal with Hillary for 4 years. And I think that he can broaden his messaging to those people by talking about his business acumen and getting a little bit more specific on some of the policy stuff. With that being said, it's going to be interesting with the attacks, given the Hillary and Bill Clinton attacking Donald Trump. The reality is you can't go to Donald Trump with a switchblade when he comes back at you with a chainsaw. That's how he operates. And that's how he's going to operate in this election cycle. And the interesting thing about Trump's strength, and this is something that's never been seen before, is he has neutralized a liberal media by going against conservative media as well. And when that's done, is it's built him some credibility amongst the general public by saying, hey, this guy doesn't trust anybody. He just trusts himself. And he is his own media. And that has really played well, and it's done well for him.
Yeah, you heard that last night. He called a lot of the press there scum, or whatever he said about him. But, his supporters love that. I do disagree with you on one point, though, Kevin. I don't know how much of the responsibility lies with Donald Trump to try and unify the party. He has to, of course, with his speech and his stump speeches up there. But I think a lot of the onus falls on the Republican establishment. Some of these folks who are still actively working to take him out when he's so far ahead.
Right.
I mean, they're the ones I think that need to start waking up to the reality of Trump, the nominee.
Well, the brokered convention idea, it's literally like that. There's like a 10% chance that you could make that happen. So many things have to fall in place. People need to get in line and understand this is the nominee. Deal with it, you know?
Yeah.
But it sounds like Ted Cruz is looking forward to something along those lines.
Well, Emily, what do you think about that kind of mentality? If it were any other candidate, everybody would be coalescing around the person with all the delegates that Donald Trump has.
Right, you guys make great points. I think actually the most notable endorsement of Trump thus far is Giuliani. I think that endorsement
that's a big one.
is much further than a lot of others. And I agree with what Kevin said. It's up to Trump now to talk policy. It's also up to him to now become the man that we've been hearing a lot of these endorsers talk about, which is in private, he's a very thoughtful, intelligent, savvy businessman. He's incredibly articulate. Well, let's see that. And number three, the most paramount thing that Trump needs to do is pick a vice president. I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but he needs to pick a vice presidential running mate that will help to unify the party.
And somebody who's willing to do it,
Yeah.
too.
Emily,
John
Kevin.
Kasich, not willing to do it.
Emily, Kevin, thank you both for joining us. Pleasure to have you. We've been talking about Donald Trump. We're going to continue talking about Donald Trump with one of Jeb Bush's former communications director, Tim Miller. He joins us next. We'll be right back.